It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Hi, I'm Darren Pittman, driver of the number 9 Great Clips Sprint Car for Casey Kane Racing, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle, indoor racing just across the river, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. You can find all sorts of great information online at joeskarting.com. Again, make sure that is karting with a K. And I think Martin Truex Jr. is probably still leading laps at the Coca-Cola 600. They finally, NASCAR is just like, can we just get this race over with? The guy's going to win it. They could have added another 100,
no, it was Martin Truex.
Laps.
It was Martin Truex. The other shoe was going to drop sometime. You know,
True.
3 laps to go,
True.
he was going to blow up.
Yeah.
You know, due to his missed shift there on the rest or something. They kept waiting, you know, and he just forgot to screw up. Or the team forgot to screw up.
Well, and I'm sitting in the pits at I-80 Speedway, and you're texting me the whole, 20 to go, second and a half, 15 to go, 1.7, and I'm just thinking, I'm waiting for that text of
he ran out of gas,
blew an engine, blew a tire,
in the wall.
The only thing he hasn't had happen is his driver's net fall or his window net fall down. So maybe that was the next thing to go. Or
he was passing Danica, and you know what happened?
He's found about every way to lose a race, and that's not a knock against him. It's luck sometimes, but that seems to be his career. He's had these issues where he's led laps, had incredibly good cars, but just weird things pop up. But that's the beautiful thing about racing.
Well, it just makes the win that more appreciated, maybe is the word I'm looking for. Like Mark Martin said, you want to celebrate every one of these wins because you don't know if you're going to get another one.
Yeah, and boy, it was great to see his girlfriend, Sherry Pollock. She was there.
And it took him forever to get her in his arms.
Yeah.
Forever.
And I guess Fox Sports had tweeted a picture later on later on after the race that she actually was holding her phone so tight she shattered the screen. I mean, just completely shattered it. Had to go to a Sprint store on Monday morning, Memorial Day, and get herself a new phone. But what a good reason to shatter a phone.
There you go.
She's had plenty of reasons to throw the phone across the room when these races go south for him. But and then to have Barney Vesser there. In his 12 years as being Furniture Row Racing, this was the first time he was at the racetrack when the team won.
Well, it's not like they've got 300 wins either.
Yeah,
I
think they've got 2 with Martin Truex, and I think 1 with Kurt.
Yeah, I think that's all the wins they've got. And they were real close with one with Reagan Smith, but didn't get it.
Yeah, and 392 laps. I was walking around after the Charlie Clark on Sunday night and kind of giving some people, some of the fans of the racetrack.
It was 394 laps, wasn't it?
392 was at least what NASCAR's official race report
that's the official one. Okay.
And like I remember Joe Koziski, I leaned in and I said, "Hey, Truex led 392 of 400." And no kidding, Joe rolls his eyes and goes, "What happened?" And I said, "He won." And he goes, "Are you kidding? He led 392 of 500 laps." I go, "No, of 400 laps." He said, "What happened to 8 laps?" I said, green flag stops. That's it. That's all it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there was no. I think Jimmy Johnson gave him some pushes.
There was 2 lead changes under green. Mm-hmm. Jimmy got by him on a restart, but Martin passed him going into 3, so Jimmy didn't lead the lap when they got back to the start-finish line. So technically, there were no lead changes on the track. They were all during pit stops.
Jimmy led 3 times for 5 laps. Chase Elliott led once for 1 lap, and Paul Menard led once for 2 laps.
I thought they had Joey Logano credited with the late lap too. He didn't get one.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, not Chase Elliott, Joey Logano.
Yeah,
Joey Logano led a lap.
Yeah, he was going down pit lane.
Oh, so it just kind of fell into his lap.
Yeah, he passed the start-finish line on pit lane as the leader.
NASCAR came out this week and said, we're going to take a look at our packages again for mile-and-a-half tracks, especially after Martin Truex Jr.'s dominating win at Charlotte.
Well, he's dominated the mile-and-a-halfs all year.
Yeah, and that's what this new lower downforce package could do when we're going to testing it in Michigan and Kentucky in a couple of weeks, and then hopefully implement it for 2017. But this win at Charlotte, these happen every once in a while. It's Harvick at Phoenix. There's just races that they stink up the show. Let's look back. It was Martin Truex Jr. at Kansas. He stunk that show up because he had far and away the best car and just had a weird thing happen that he ended up not getting the win.
He had a great car at Dover. He should have 4 or 5 wins this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's having Harvick's year from 2 years ago where Harvick had all those second-place finishes and third-place finishes.
Yep.
Truex right now is just the class of the field, and it's kind of weird when you think that he is a satellite team from Joe Gibbs Racing, but the satellite team's the best team of those 5 teams right now, by far.
Of those 5 cars, you mean?
Joe Gibbs' 4 cars and the satellite team.
Yeah.
He's the best team, even though Kyle Busch has 3 wins.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with you on that because you can't just look at the wins category and say who's doing best. You got to look at the performance overall, and when some of these guys have races that are just bad races or 2-3 string races where they're just in the back of the pack or mid-pack, Martin Truex Jr. is still up there.
Yeah.
And he's still pushing to get those wins. He was what we saw out of Penske last year with Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski a lot of the time.
Well, let's start at Daytona. He lost Daytona by
1/100th of a second.
I was going to say 8 feet.
Yeah.
That's about when he got past. He was leading, and the finish line would have been moved 8 feet.
I don't know if NASCAR needs so much worry about this, but there's going to be that ebb and flow, and I would expect that Martin Truex Jr. is going to be hot at these 1.5-mile tracks for probably another 5, 6, maybe 7 races.
Well, at least this year.
It'll start to cool off. We see this all the time. It's these ebb and flows of the way things go, and Jimmy Johnson won 6 championships in a row because he got hot at the end of the season. He would always be good at the beginning of the season, then he would kind of go into, there was question of if he would have a low or if he would start testing. It was probably testing, but then he would pick it back up at the end of the season and they would just start knocking off wins, and you couldn't points beat him. And that's the reason why we have our new system. This elimination style is because it's not about finishing consistently, it's about you got to get wins.
Right.
And so I don't know if NASCAR needs to worry about it, but you know what? They're a lot smarter at this stuff than I am. I know people love to criticize them about the product on the track and what they're doing and this and that, but they're really good at understanding what's coming.
Well, I would love it, and maybe NASCAR's actually done this already, and obviously they wouldn't advertise it if they had, but if they literally took the top 5 cars, and then if they don't have a make in there, like, so let's just say there's 3 Toyotas and 2 Chevys, well, they ain't got a Ford in there, and then take the top finishing Ford. And the biggest deal on these cars right now is I'd be willing to bet they're all running the exact same spring, but the shocks. Take the shocks off, dyno them, take them apart, and see who's running a 30-millimeter shim stack, who's running a 40, who's running a 10, exactly what's in these shocks, and see if it's there or if it is the driver.
Yeah.
It could be Martin Truex has just got it going right now, and it is literally him.
He was solid last year, too. What they've got going on there at Furniture Row Racing is really, we haven't seen it since... Well, probably Tony Stewart when he went over and they started the single car Stewart-Haas Racing organization.
Well, no, you saw it last year with Harvick or 2 years ago with Harvick and Childress when they got together.
A single car organization.
Oh, a single car.
Even though they're a satellite team, they're still doing their own stuff. They're still working on their own equipment. And before Stewart-Haas Racing and what Tony did in 2011 with his championship, correct me if I'm wrong, I probably am, but it was probably Alan Kulwicki.
Oh, by far, yeah.
That was probably the last single-car organization that really showed the big teams how to get it done.
Except Alan Kulwicki literally was his own organization and had been for several years, where Tony Stewart come in and bought into a fully established race team.
Right. And Alan was a different story because he wasn't buying equipment from a top-tier organization. He wasn't buying, all
they
this
were building their own stuff,
right.
Where Tony Stewart was buying stuff from Hendrick and everything like that. Kulwicki was doing all his own stuff. That guy was a mechanical engineer with a college degree and everything. So smart dude.
Harvick, Johnson, Hamlin, Keselowski rounded out top 5. Harvick and Johnson both post-race said, I don't think we'd had anything for Martin.
No, what Johnson said is, I think he was playing with us.
Yeah, that's true. That was a good one where he said, I'd start to get a little bit closer to him and then he'd just be gone. And that very well could have been. It came down to, I think, fuel mileage for a couple of these guys that were trying to save on fuel. And
well, I think that got to play a little bit at the end. Like the announcers even said, Fox actually got something right. But I think it was Jeff Gordon that said, I think he's just mirroring them. Their lap times slow down, so he's saving a little fuel. When they come after him, he takes off.
He knows that if he just keeps pushing it and adds time to it, then somebody missed a button on a calculator and it could go wrong. So it would be the smartest just to back off and let it ride. Take a lesson from, is it Alex Rossi who won the Indianapolis 500?
Coasting.
Coasting. I mean, that's just insane how much he was off the pace. And I think they came over the radio on the backstretch and said, full throttle, they're going to black flag us. But congratulations to him, the California native, for winning the 500. That was a good race too. That was I kind of watch it. That's that and the Iowa Speedway IndyCar races, the only IndyCar exposure I really get. But man alive, was there a lot of passing at Indy this year as far as the IndyCars is concerned.
Well, the IndyCars are such a different breed because the actual aerodynamics aren't quite as tight as what NASCAR runs their regulations. And after that, everything's regulated pretty much by computers. They got so much telemetry on the cars, that you'll see them half the race they're driving around in fifth gear, not even using sixth gear because they're trying to save fuel already.
And they've got, I mean, it's really insane to think what. And we're trying to get James Hinchcliffe thank you, on the show in a couple of weeks to preview the Iowa Speedway race. So we'll talk to him about this more, but like the different options they have, they can change their fuel mapping on that steering wheel with, I think, 4 or 5 different options as far as how to change the fuel ratio so that they're getting better gas mileage or more power. And they can, I mean, just the amount of things they can change on those cars is just nuts. And I kind of wonder if maybe NASCAR's not starting to move towards that world a little bit, ever so slightly, because we went from needle dashboards to now they have a digital dashboard that they can customize and they can check up on things. And we've got driver adjustable track bars to be able to put a little more, a little less wedge into them. And so you kind of wonder if maybe NASCAR's not kind of maybe starting to look at that area and see if maybe that's a direction they can go.
I don't think they'll get into driver adjustable fuel systems and stuff like that. I really don't think they will. If it does, it's going to be years down the road. It took them forever to try the track bar. They talked about it for several years before they tried it. And now that all the teams have it, you don't hear a whole lot about it. So I don't think that's a major factor in what's going on. I mean, the teams are using it.
You can hear it. Fox does it. They'll play the broadcast every once in a while about, and they'll talk about it a little bit about, I've been making adjustments on the track bar. And I remember hearing Tony Stewart talk about it at the beginning of this year when he got back, that he had to remember that making that adjustment on the track bar, it took about a lap or two for the adjustment to work in, because the motor or whatever adjusts it can't do it in the corners. And at some racetracks, you're turning all the time, so it takes a little bit for it to adjust. And I remember them talking about that a little bit. But yeah, you don't hear about it as much as you did the first year it was implemented.
Well, that, and along with it taking a lap or two to work its way in, the suspension has to settle itself and basically kind of reset. So it has to completely cycle once, extend the spring and compress the spring and the shock absorber before that system's going to take hold again, whatever the change was. So, it takes a lap or two for the change to come in. But again, I mean, they're using it. You don't hear as much about it as what, you kind of heard a lot about it at first because it was an experiment. You guys were trying it all, I'm going to go 3 laps and try that track bar adjustment and see what happens. Even though the car is fast, I'm going to try it, so I can find out. But you don't hear much about it anymore, and you haven't heard anything else headed in that direction. So I think before you see any fuel management systems from inside the car, it'll be a while.
But it was kind of cool to listen to it, and something that I really wish NASCAR would be able to figure out. It's just way too difficult. But they were talking about, at least at Indy, for those Indy cars, was as soon as somebody got out in front, they would rocket out in front quite a ways. But then they were punching such a hole in the air that they would get sucked back to the field. And that's why you saw, there was like some 60 lead changes over that race, because they would only be able to lead for about 3-4 laps. And plus, when they were out there leading, they were getting such horrible gas mileage And horrible in perspective that I think the pit window, the fuel window was about 30, 35, 40 laps.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they do for mileage. So.
If they led all the laps, then they would have to come in 2 to 3 laps earlier than second place would. So they were doing a lot of changing because they needed to equalize their fuel mileage.
Right.
So it was really interesting to watch that one race. And so that was kind of cool to watch it. What a great day of racing on Sunday, though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was in front of the TV all day. And another thing that they've done now, and I'm not sure if they're still doing it. I know they used to do it in the IndyCar, is they only got like 200 gallons of methanol to run the race.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They used to have that truck
would
would kill
fuel
up.
restriction.
Yeah. And so that's why they're so big on their fuel mileage. And basically it's a deal where they put that big gravity-fed tank. They don't have dump cans.
Yeah.
They've got that gravity-fed tank. And before, they used to have a huge tank. I mean, I don't know if they gave them like 500 gallons or whatever. But they, when they had a few of those fuel fires and that fuel was just dumping until the tank ran out, they went to I think it's 200 gallons. And that's what it was for a while. I don't know if it still is. But for a 500-mile race, I mean, that's still 2.5 miles a gallon.
Back to the Coke 600, Kurt Busch, Matt Kenseth, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Ryan Newman round out your top 10. Another great finish for Chase Elliott. Someone I expected to be strong, but kind of I'm seeing him finish in 13th. Kyle Larson, how was his day?
Kyle got in the wall a little bit.
Oh, and that seems to be his biggest problem. I mean, he's up there in the high side. He loves that high side. He's just waiting for that cushion.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just one of them deals. He, did a little scuff. It wasn't anything, monstrous. Like he had, he really got in the wall on Saturday in the Xfinity race. He led a bunch of laps again and then got beat at the end. Denny Hamlin was driving the 18 this week and came from way back, and they got a caution right at the end, and it got kind of ugly. And, of course, Kyle Busch got into the fence a week ago real bad.
Yeah.
The All-Star race.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's take a break. We're gonna come back. Turn number 2 and 3. Stan Cisar is going to join us. First in turn 2, we're going to talk about the Charlie Clark Memorial and what happened there. Great race, great racing action, and one of my favorite races of the year. Then in turn number 3, we're going to preview the month of June for Eagle Raceway of what's coming on. Obviously, Stan being the voice of Eagle Raceway, so he's going to be great to get us all that information. And then in turn number 4, we have more passes for Iowa Speedway to give away. So we will ask that trivia question. Plus, we will preview the Tricky Triangle as Pocono is up next today at noon.
So you're just going to wake me up for turn 4 then?
Yep, I'll wake you up for turn 4. Stan's pretty much going to take over the show for the next half hour. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
My kind of road trip is a little different. Sure, it's got hours of driving with plenty of pit stops, but it's not for minivans. And this drive is one journey that's all about the destination. This is my road trip. This is my Speedway. June 18th, experience the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series 200. June 19th is the NASCAR Xfinity Series American Ethanol E15 250. Tickets start at $15 only at Iowa Speedway.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Hi, this is Brad Keselowski, 2012 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the show, heading into turn number 2, and it's time to talk to the voice of the Speedway. He is caught weekly Friday nights off and on at I-80 Speedway, but on a regular basis at Eagle Raceway on Saturday nights. The man behind the microphone and becoming a good friend of mine. And Stan, how you doing, buddy?
No, I'm doing great, man.
Now, I worry about, you with working as the pit reporter the last couple of times, as you're up in the booth, and you call me over and say, hey, how's your hula hoop abilities? And then I get to talking, and the fans think I'm a hula hoop champion all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, we were trying to get people to enter the hula hoop contest and the limbo contest, and you got on the PA and you start telling everybody about your accomplishments, and then people won't enter because they say, well, we can't beat Dan Taylor, so we're not even going to try.
And the week before that, I owe you and Anthony Ainsley both pork tenderloin sandwiches because I don't have a MLB quality arm.
Well, no, you maybe throw that guy out from home from the pitcher's mound, but you get up there past second base and you're going to struggle a little bit.
That's a long way, Stan. I don't know what you're.
And that's pitcher's mound, on an 8-year-old's baseball diamond.
I was a great t-ball player. I could
t-ball. You bet.
Let's talk about that.
I'll tell you what. If we can't have fun at the races, what's the point?
Boy, did we have fun on Sunday night though at the Charlie Clark. Last Sunday was and boy, I mean, just so thankful we got that race in. I can't be a bigger a cheerleader for how much I love that race, but just lucky because the whole night it just seemed like rain was impending all night long, but the good Lord looked down on us, and I think the vortex theory that I heard played into it a little bit. We never got a drop of rain.
No, it was great. A couple sprinkles on the windshield on the way home, but that was well after the event was over, and we kept looking out the south side back at that little window in the back of the booth there, and seeing what was behind us. We said, man, we better get the road on the show here because it's coming,
Yeah.
And then you were looking at the radar and saying, I think it's going to skirt by us just a little bit, and sure enough, we got it in, and the fans were treated to some great racing.
We were all playing amateur meteorologist that night, analyzing the way the radar was moving and the percentages. And
amateur meteorologist, just like the guys on TV.
Something? That's what I was going to say. We did every bit as well as Jim Ramby,
Yeah.
Bill Ramby.
That's Bill's brother, Jim.
Yeah, he didn't have his sleeves rolled up on Sunday night, so he got it off a little bit. All right, let's talk about that Hobby Stock A feature. Jason Cole, he knows something about that track that no other hobby stocker does.
Well, he's kind of an old throwback, and I think he turned some laps around the old original Denison Crawford County Speedway when it was the big track. And I used to announce up there on every Friday night with Tom Lathan for Howard Milliger years ago, and we watched those hobby stocks, and it was a train up around that high side. And boy, if you pulled out of line to try to make a pass on somebody ducking down to the inside, that you better have a working unit underneath you because otherwise you're going to get shuffled back a couple spots. And the whole key to that hobby stock division, it's a tightly spec'd class. They're on narrow tires. They're heavy cars. It's all about momentum. And Jason was up around that top side, and it was awful tough to go anyplace else.
He definitely had it won, and it was kind of a battle.
Let's roll the hobby stocks back to the heat races. You witnessed, well, we all witnessed, but you had witnessed up close hand. How about the crash, Tyler Jackson's crash going down the backstretch into turn 3?
Stan, I don't mean to overstate something, but when I turned and looked at that car, I thought I saw somebody die. I mean, that was frightening. That car was sheared apart. Dirk, it looked like Michael Waltrip's car, what was that, 5-10 years ago at Bristol when he hit that gate, and his car just exploded.
I'll tell you what, that was probably as bad of a hobby stock, and you talk about, well, it's the hobby stocks, and they're not going that fast, and it's just the hobby stocks, I got news for you. When something happens, especially on a track as big as I-80, that car started rolling, and it didn't quit rolling until well past the pit entrance down there, and just kept rolling, and side over side, end over end, and it was flinging parts off with every revolution,
And able to walk away. And I saw him in the pits all night long. And granted, the later in the night it got, he was kind of walking a little slower, and I think the impacts were kind of starting to catch up to him, and he was pretty sore probably on Monday morning. I
bet you he was very stiff and sore on Sunday morning. But the good news is, Tyler, he was able to walk away from that baby, and cars can be rebuilt, and there's a typical guy who has a lot of fun racing, and somebody just turned him a little bit, and he got into the wall and come back down off the wall and made contact and got him turned sideways down there, and they're probably hustling even in the hobby stock class. They're probably 90, 100 miles an hour.
I would agree. I think so, especially when you're going into 3. That's one of the fastest corners because you're coming off that big straightaway.
Exactly, but the good news is, like I said, Tyler was he's able to walk away, and hopefully he'll be racing another day. But we'll run down that hobby stock feature. Of course, Jason Cole picked up the win. Jeff Ware gave him an awful good race there early on in the going, but the real race going on was those last 5 laps between Jeff Ware and Jesse Van Lanningham, Luke Ramsey, Tom Myers, Austin Bronner was up there. He kind of got drop kicked back just in the last couple laps, but he was up there racing with Jason early on in the going, and it was a great race.
And then moving up to your Grand Nationals, a kid that has just found something at I-80 Speedway the last couple of weeks and blazing fast.
I think not only I-80 Speedway, I think he's also won out at McCool, and wherever he chooses to go. Corey Dumpert's been the dominant driver in that Grand National bragging rights late model deal and running the crate engines, and he's got good equipment, and he stands on the gas. Josh Leonard, and another thing, I really think something that's really becoming important in that Grand National division, we've noticed it the last couple of weeks, tire management. Mm-hmm. I think those guys, those motors make, if the car setup is not right and you're trying to get from the back to the front, you can use those tires up early and not have much left at the end of the race.
Josh Leonard came home second and Jim Johnson third. A heartbreaker for Brian Koziski. I tried to talk to him on the microphone after the race, and heartbreak doesn't even begin to describe what he was feeling. He was running in second with a chance to win that race on the last restart and just had a bad restart.
Well, and there's one guy in particular. I think earlier on in the year, I think he came forward in a race in the last 5 or 6 laps because he saved his tires. Mm-hmm. This particular race, he had a bad starting position. He had to charge to get up there to be able to race with Corey because Corey was starting to get away a little bit, and Brian ran him down. They had quite a good race and was able to make the pass. And I really don't think he had much left there at the end.
Had quite a few B mods in the house. I believe it was 49 total.
50, right at 50 cars. Had 5 heats, and all the big dogs were in the house, and it was a pretty tough field. But you see a field like that. I had to feel for Trent Roth. Trent had just passed Mark Lighting for the lead. Caution flag came out, and it put him back. It went back to the last completed lap, and Trent got put back into that second spot. And or not Mark Lighting. Trent had just passed Sean Harker for the lead, and then Mark Lighting got right up there, and with a double file restart, it tightened things up again. And Trent started going backwards a little bit. He hung on for third, but I really think if he could have had the lead and that caution had not come out, I think he could have got away because we were monitoring the lap times, up in the booth, and he was a little bit quicker. Yeah. He was reeling them in by 2 to 4 tenths a lap, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but over the course of 5-10 laps, it's quite a few car lengths. So Trent coming home with a good third place finish behind the 2 really hitters in that class. Very tough break for Ryan Jenkins, and I know he didn't want to speak when you tried to talk with him. He got caught up in an early race crash, and he's been one of the tough competitors, one of the youngsters out there in that class. Another good run for Jacob Hopscheid. He was top 10 in there, and Jake Sackow up out of Denison, Iowa, had a good run in that car number 14.
And what a great run for Mark Lighting. You talked about him finishing second. He came out of the B, had a very tough heat race, didn't qualify for the A, so he had to make his way out of the B, started 16th, and ends up finishing runner-up.
Well, Chris and I talked quite a bit about that in the booth, how tough the heat races were that night, because there was a lot of heat that didn't make the A in the transfer spot out of the heat race, and they had to come out of one of those. We had 3 B main events, took the top 3 out of each one to add to the starting field, and it was a heck of a race. The Charlie Clark, a little bit more money on the line, and just racing in his memory. A lot of guys used to know Charlie when he raced, and he was a great competitor up out of Lamar's, Iowa, and been around for quite a number of years. Like I said, he raced at Harlan and he raced up at Denison when we were announcing up there on a regular basis, and got to know him. Steve Koziski actually drove his car, is modified to some big wins. They actually were the spearheaded the Racer chassis, which now Roth builds them now, but was originally done up at Clark. So
wow. And the special format, the thing I love the most is your A modified feature. 24 cars are going to qualify for 2 22-lap segments. The first segment, you saw a lot of the regular guys up front, but a great battle with Justin Zeitner, Jordan Grabowski, Jesse Dennis, a lot of really good guys up there trying to battle for that win.
Oh, you bet. It was quite a race, and they were both racing hard, and neither one wanted to give an inch, and that was pretty apparent. Slide job that went terribly wrong down in turn 4. Justin tried to put on Jordan, and he managed to make the pass on the deal. But it was door to door. It wasn't even close, But what do you say,
Well, I think Justin said it during the intermission, the break there. He said, if that's the way he's going to race me, then that's the way we're going to race.
That was Jordan that said that.
Yeah, he didn't appreciate
it. After the, you guys did some interviews down there during the pit stop, and that was great. The fans got a chance to see everybody working on the cars. There was a sense of urgency. Justin Zeitner's car fell off the jack at one time. And like I said, the fans were really getting into that part of it. And we had the air horn, in place, to let everybody know when to start and when to stop. And the fans got into the deal with the countdowns, and it was a great time, very entertaining. And I think, like I said, after hearing the interviews, my quote of the night had to be, there's only one guy out there that's faster than Jordan Grabowski, and that's a pissed off Jordan Grabowski. And I mean, he sliced through that field. I mean, he was in the top 5 in 3 laps after starting at the rear.
Well, and let's back up a little bit and go through the format. So Zeitner, Grabowski, Anson, Most, and Roth all finished top 5. But the way it ends is that they do the 22-lap first segment, and then they come down the front stretch. They do a chalk mark through the middle of the front stretch. The cars line up closest to the fans, and the team crew members line up on the inside retaining wall. And then they all have 2 minutes and 22 seconds at the sound of the horn to make all the adjustments they can. And so we talked to a couple of them. We're going to tighten the car up a little bit. I'm going to change the tire. I'm going to do this, a little that. I saw some shocks being changed. But you kind of hinted towards it with Justin Zeitner. He knew he was going to get inverted to the back of the field anyways, because that's the way the next segment lays out. So he told his crew, guys, take your time. We're going to the back anyway. So it doesn't matter if we take 4 minutes to make this stop. We're going to the back. So he kind of exploited one of those rules that doesn't have a catch to it quite yet.
And I think there were 6 or 7 cars that they didn't complete the work or didn't get back across the line on time.
14.
14 cars.
14 cars didn't finish working by the 2 minutes and 22 seconds. So Joe Kozinski said after the races, I think we're going to have to come up with a penalty. But so then his jack falls off, and it knocks a mud plug off of his tire. Dirk, you can kind of tell me a little bit more about this. I thought the mud plug was just a cover that went over the wheel well. But is there something on the inside of that wheel that stops mud from coming up in there?
Correct. Yeah, there's a cover that's bolted onto the inside, onto the hub and everything on the assembly that keeps the inside of the wheel from filling up with mud and trying to keep mud out of the brakes.
Yeah. So he was doomed from the drop of the green flag because his car was just shaking so bad. But
he's still charged up through there pretty good, though.
And you were talking about it. Grabowski got reset to, I believe, 20th was where he went back to. And within a couple of laps, he was up into the front. It was, that many cars, 22 cars still on the field. And in a couple of laps, he's able to make his way through all those cars to get to the front. You knew he was determined.
Oh yeah, he was on a rail. I'll tell you what, there was some good racing going on, but in that the second race, half of that race, you had to be watching on the track where the good battles were taking place because the battle for the lead was non-existent. Jordan was gone.
And Jordan Grabowski ends up getting the second segment win. So Justin Zeitner winning the first segment took home $2,022. Jordan Grabowski winning the second segment took home $2,022. And with the overall finishes, Jordan Grabowski gets the win, gets the trophy, and gets the bottle of Jack Daniels at the end of the night.
Yeah, and plus he got the second place money from that first feature. Plus he got the overall win, and so it was a pretty good payday, I think, for Jordan. Probably a little better than 4K he took back to Beatrice with him.
I asked him if he was going to buy any Cookies barbecue sauce, and he said, "I think it's going back into the car."
Yeah.
Well, I think if
I'll tell you what, there you mentioned Cookies barbecue sauce. Speed Herrig of Cookies. He's a great supporter of racing, and he used to be a major sponsor. As a matter of fact, his son even raced for quite a number of years in the modified division over at Shelby County Speedway. And great guy. He's been on board with this race ever since Joe and them came up with it. And I'll tell you what, when you make your choice there, what barbecue sauce to buy, always keep Cookies in mind because they're a great supporter of racing.
10-4.
I think if Joe's looking for something or a new penalty or something for those long pit stops, maybe $100 for every 10 seconds or something out of their purse money. Maybe that'd change a few deals.
That would do it.
Speed them up a little bit.
That would do it.
And Joe would like that thought.
Put that in the suggestion box.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back at turn number 3. We're going to talk June racing action at Eagle Raceway.
Oh, no, not turn number 3. Bad things happen in turn 3.
We'll be back here on the front stretch.
All right, man.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
After 50 years of being America's home track, Eagle Raceway is the place to be on Saturday nights for great dirt track racing. Bring the family out this Saturday for Junior Kids Club presented by Colby Ridge. During intermission, kids 12 and under can compete in the Kids Money Grab on the front stretch of Eagle Raceway. Tickets for kids 6 to 12 are just $5 and kids 5 and under get in free. Gates open at 5:30 with the green flag waving at 6:30. Eagle Raceway, just east of Lincoln on Highway 34 in Eagle, Nebraska.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Hey gang, this is Brendan Gaughan, driver of the number 62 South Point Hotel Casino Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Rolling into turn number 3, still on the phone with us. Going to have a full half hour with the voice of the Speedway, Stan Cisar. And it's time to turn our attention to Eagle Raceway. You guys have some pretty fun races coming up in June. And one of the funner things I think that we do, or that the sport does, a lot of these tracks do them, is the kids' money toss. But before you do that, you've got the Budweiser, the student breakout. Is that discounts for student getting into the races?
Well, yeah, with school being out, we always have that. They used to always have school bus races, and I think, last Saturday night was supposed to be the annual Memorial Day extravaganza. The driver appreciation. Every driver got 100 free tickets to give out to their fans and sponsors and close friends, and expect a huge crowd for that. And unfortunately, Mother Nature not being very cooperative in last week at most of the racing that was supposed to take place, and unfortunately, that was one of them that, with that many extra people there, they had to use every square foot of parking that they had available. They had to use all the pit area, clear down on the northwest side, and it was just really muddy because, a lot of people slept through all the heavy rain that we got all week long, and it seemed like after dark we got pummeled almost every night of the week last week, and it was just a shame. But we had to cancel that, but we did postpone it to this coming week, so it's going to be kind of a double jeopardy thing. We're going to have the student breakout night and the fan appreciation night all rolled into one big program. And it's going to be a cool deal.
What about the Colby Ridge presents the Junior Fan Club night? Excuse me, the Kids Money Dash. The Kids Money Grab is always a fun thing because they take the coins out on the front stretch, and the kids get to run out and actually be on the track and pick up a couple of coins.
Oh yeah, they pick up all the loose change, and then it goes right straight to the Eagles Nest down there for souvenirs or to the concession stand usually. But the kids love to get out there on the track. And following that, Pepsi-Cola is going to bring the Dad's Night. That's Dad's tribute. Father's Day weekend. Coming up,
what's the Mustache Madness? Is that something? Is that a contest I can enter into if I grow out my mustache?
I'm sure it's going to be some kind of a contest, and I'm if I know them down there, the mustaches probably will be provided in some way, shape, or form. You never can tell, but one of the big events that everybody looks forward to every year is the annual Rumble in the Bull Ring, and that's going to be on Friday night, June the 24th. 2 nights of racing that week on the big track at Eagle Raceway. No carts that weekend, and the USAC 410 non-wing sprint cars are in the house. I believe it's co-sanctioned with the Wingless Auto Racing, or at least a lot of those guys come up and support the event. So we had a great car count last year. The non-wing guys always put on a great show. They back those cars into the corners, and there's a lot of driving. Let's just say a lot of driving. Maybe not quite the high speed of a winged car, but a lot more driving. And it's kind of a throwback to the old days, And they still have the cages and everything else. But it's a great night. Also in the house is going to be the Sprint Series of Nebraska. They'll be having the Race Saver sprint cars, the regular or weekly cars there. That's part of a 10-race series that's going on during the year, and then another whole complete show the following night. So with all the weekly classes, the IMCA classes with the modifieds, the B mods, hobby stocks, and the sport compacts. So it's
Dirk, those wingless that we saw at Lakeside a few weeks ago when we were down there for Kansas Speedway, were those 410s?
That I don't know. I don't recall
some of them were,
announced.
Dirk. I think those guys down there, they've got a different formula. You can run anything from a 305 to a 410, and because the cars are not hooked up with the wing, the amount of horsepower is not. Obviously, more is better, but it's not necessarily necessary.
Right.
Guys can be very competitive with the smaller engines, just because those cars aren't as planted with the downforce that the wings give you.
The next night you talked about the June 25th. Saturday night, Great Clips presents the Race On Mania, the kids' color run. What's that all about?
Well, that's they have the color runs around the country and stuff like that, and it's always a donation. You come in, you get your T-shirt, and you run an obstacle course. You run through tires, you run through the water, you run through mud, you jump over hurdles, and stationed around the course, you have some of the drivers, and they throw the colored chalk on you.
Is Tom going to do that? Is kind of an experience thing?
Probably not.
Are you going to send your the Eagle girls to go down there and do it then?
Well, that has been done before. Yeah, when Elle was around, she used to partake of that, and she came up looking very much like a rainbow. Yeah.
Well, if Roger's listening, I'll volunteer to come down for that. I can be one of the mountains I got to climb over.
There you go. Just lay down there and you climb over Dirk. Yeah.
EagleRaceway.com for all sorts of tickets and information. We got a couple minutes left in the turn, so
that's just getting us started. That's just warming us up a little bit, because boy, when we get down toward the end of August and close out our regular point season, then we got a couple of really big season-ending specials going on. Obviously the 4th annual IMCA Race Saver Sprint Car Nationals will be in the house. Last year we had 92 cars from 17 states. This year we're very confident we're going to top the over 100 entry mark, and with as many new cars as there are and as many new tracks around the country that are now Race Saver sanctioned and IMCA sanctioned, the interest, it's a buzz, and great racing last year, although it was pretty much dominated by a guy from Lubbock, Texas, John Carney II. JC2 he won every race he was in, and not without a fight, but one tough customer, and I like to refer to him as the Jack Dover of Texas, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. They just drive the wheels off of about any sprint car they hop into, whether it's a 305, a 360, or a 410.
Talk about some of the racing action so far this year as far as points is concerned. Looking over all the classes you guys have at Eagle Raceway, is there a breakout driver or a surprise driver this year, or are we kind of seeing some of the regular hot shoes up front as always?
Well, I was going to say I don't think it's been so much a surprise, but yeah, Chad Anderson's been very consistent in the modified division. You know, in the sprint car division, Tyler Drucke. Tyler's been awful tough. He did have 1 week where there was some controversy about the legality of the engine, the cam lift, and you know we talked about that. I think touched on it on a different program. You know. When you tightly spec the rules in a class, it really raises the bar competition-wise, you know, and everybody's looking for the maximum, you know, that they can get, and it does make the competition much closer because you're very close to the guy that's racing next with you. You can't really outspin somebody to try to make yourself go faster, and that's what it's all about, and that's why you see more new guys getting involved now that probably wouldn't have gotten in and jumped in years ago because they know they're going to be coming up against the veterans. Even though the veterans now, when they do race in the 305 race saver division, you know, they're very tough to beat because of their driving ability, their chassis setup knowledge, just their overall moxie, you know, of having been around Eagle Raceway for a number of years. But you're seeing the newcomers getting closer and closer all the time, and some of them getting fast right out of the bat, and it's really great to see the young guys coming along.
Hey, how's your cohort down there doing? How's Tommy's boy doing?
He's doing real good. You know, he had a really good run going last week, and unfortunately ended up bending the wing on the last corner of the last lap of the B main. He was just a couple positions out of a transfer spot, and he started at the back and passed some cars and really ran down this little group of cars that were racing right behind fifth place. And there was a 3-car deal coming out of the corner 4 on the final lap, and one guy that was a pretty experienced driver, we won't name names, but a guy that's been around racing and has raced 360s for a number of years, they had some contact with another driver, and he ended up doing a gentle spin and spun right down in front of Jimmy, and Jimmy pretty much didn't have any place to go and got into the deal, and up and over he went. But they got it all back together, and if they would have raced last Saturday, they'd have been in the field. So you
can catch them most Saturday nights at Eagle Raceway, some Friday nights at I-80 Speedway, and various times.
Stan, just about 24/7 at Action Signs, it seems like.
We'll see you at the track shortly, bud. All right.
Hey, always good, man. We're going to have a good time this weekend again, and you know, we'll be sharing the microphone up in the booth, I think, quite a number of times during the month of July.
I always look forward to it. Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
Thanks, Stan.
You betcha. See you, Dirk.
See ya. And again, that was Stan Cisar of Eagle Raceway. You can go to eagleraceway.com for all sorts of tickets and information. We're going to come back to number 4. We have Iowa Speedway tickets to give away, and we have Pocono to preview, so make sure you stick around for that. This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
My kind of road trip is a little different. Sure, it's got hours of driving with plenty of pit stops, but it's not for minivans. And this drive is one journey that's all about the destination. This is my road trip. This is my Speedway. June 18th, experience the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series 200. June 19th is the NASCAR Xfinity Series American Ethanol E15 250. Tickets start at $15 only at Iowa Speedway.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Hey y'all, it's Miss Coors Light, and you're listening to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the Front Stretch. By the way, we were talking last weekend from Quaker Steak and Lube about the Touch-A-Truck event that is June 13th. So that is coming up next, not tomorrow, the following Monday. And that's the big Touch-A-Truck event. Really cool event. Tentatively agreed to. Jack Dover and Jesse Sobbing will have their cars on display out there along with Optimus Prime. They usually have a big tow truck from Aero Towing, and they'll have a semi and helicopters and National Guard automobiles and Ollie the Trolley.
Not going to have a late model out there, too?
We got time. We could probably track down a late model driver. I was going to see if Bill Layton Jr. would be able to do it, but
didn't the defending Nebraska state champion, didn't he have a Quaker Steak thing on his car? I thought.
I don't think Quaker Steak sponsored him for a while.
Okay. That might have been an old picture I'd seen.
Yeah.
I was thinking of.
I'll have to see about that. But yeah, it'd be cool to have Andrew out there. I think he's got brand new T-shirts in too. That I bought a couple of T-shirts from him. So
he made you buy them?
Of course. Kid's got to get money for tires. I hate it when drivers give me things for me personally. I love it when they give it to us for the radio show, and we get plenty of stuff from local drivers, autographed hero cards and koozies and stuff to give away. But I hate taking free stuff from drivers, especially dirt drivers, because I like to give them at least a little bit of money because those shirts cost a couple of bucks and they charge $20 and you say, oh God, they're making $15 off the shirt. Well, I guarantee you it's not for a steak dinner at Texas Roadhouse. It's probably going back into the race car.
I was going to say, I haven't had a driver since Steve Kinzer was giving me a 3X, and he goes, you're like a walking billboard, dude. Here's a shirt.
I want to say a big thanks to Stan Cisar for coming in in turns 2 and 3 and talking to us a little bit about the Charlie Clark Memorial and the racing action to come at Eagle Raceway. As this is turn 4, it's time to preview Pocono, the Tricky Triangle, and this has always been an interesting one. The question of to shift or not to shift.
No, the question is this Martin Truex Chapter 2.
Right.
That's the question.
Absolutely. Because he dominated this race. Well, he was very good at this race a year ago. I think it was a year ago. Or was it the second Pocono race I believe he won at?
I was thinking it was the first one he won.
I'll have to go back and do some poking around on that. No pun intended, but...
No Poconoing around?
Yeah. A fuel mileage game. 2.5 mile track. Fuel mileage always comes into effect today.
Well, and it's very effective on the shift.
Yeah. And so we talked about it last weekend with Ray Evernham being the first crew chief to really start working a race backwards and understanding where the typical cautions come from, and so when you need to bring your driver down pit road to get a fresh tank of gas and some new tires. But this is an interesting. I love this track. I think it's a really cool, fun one. But Tony Stewart did a Facebook video earlier this week and said, it is the longest front stretch. And I think I've even heard a couple of people joke that you could order a Jimmy John's sandwich, have it delivered, and eat it by the time you got to turn 1. But
Kevin Harvick probably makes that joke, I'm sure.
It's a big, wide track.
It's
8-9
wide on the front straightaway here is not unusual.
And you'll really see that when they get the restarts going, because some guys don't get going very well, and so they're fanning out big time.
Yeah, they really get spread out. They get the draft. The draft is so big at that racetrack. And then the cars that are shifting and not shifting, that's a big advantage down to the end. And, of course, then they got to get slowed up to get through that turn 1. That turn 1 is almost like a suicide turn. It's a mess. It's tough to go more than 2 wide through that turn. There's a few bumps down there.
For as wide as we talked about the front stretch being, the groove in turn 1 is a needle. I mean, you've really got to get in line and ready to go. You talked about going through turn 1. It's about 2 grooves wide.
Yeah, I mean, the track's wide. The track, you can put 10 cars side by side through there, but you can't race like that. And you've got to get through on the bottom or a line off the bottom at the highest.
Yeah.
To be able to get through and get exited down that short chute to turn 2.
Tony also mentioned in that video as he was previewing Pocono today, that's going to be on Fox and MRN, that it's a momentum track. If you break your momentum, it's going to take you quite a few laps, maybe even a lap and a half to 2 laps to get back up, and you could lose 10, 15 positions. If it's close racing, you'll lose probably 5 if it's spread out a little bit.
Well, yeah, if it gets spread out a little bit, you'll lose 5 spots there. And passing's not super tough at the track. You got to time it. They really like to pass going through the third turn. There's no 4 turns there. There's only 3. And since they redid all that concrete on the outside of turn 3 now, that the high groove is kind of the place to be down there. But, there's, like I said, the whole track's wide. The racing groove gets narrow, but the whole track's wide. There's plenty of places to pass. But again, just like the 1.5-mile tracks, the aero can be such a big deal here. If you get out front and get the clean air, you can go walk the dog.
Mm-hmm. Keys to this race. What do you think are a couple of keys for these drivers? Conserving your fuel, going with fuel mileage?
Well, obviously fuel mileage is big at every track.
Yeah.
But again, every crew chief now is working the race backwards. They know where they've got to be, at what point they've got to be, to where they have to have that last tank of fuel. So you don't see a whole lot of stops. And anymore this year, I honestly think there's been more green flag racing than there has been in a long time. And I think that's got to do with the aero package that they're running right now. To me, it's made the racing better. Green flag stops, to me, make the racing better. But you're seeing these guys short pit all the time. They're not completely using tires up, like the other. They're at where the heck did they just race?
Charlotte.
They're Charlotte. I was trying to think all the 1.5-mile tracks were going through my head, but they went on that last run, and everybody was worried because they hadn't put as many laps on their tires as they were going to. Cole Pern was telling Martin Truex, hey, your tires have come off perfect. We're going an extra 15 laps. Mm-hmm. But your tires have been perfect, so you have no issues. Keep it out of your mind. Don't even ask me about it. He told him about it up front, and I'm sure all the crew chiefs did.
Yeah.
So you don't see him using up the tires until right at the end like that. So it's just, the tires are dropping off so big that once a top runner, it can be the second or third place car. It doesn't have to be the leader. But once he pits, everybody else follows because they don't want to lose the track time.
Well, we got a little bit of time left in the show. Let's give away our next pair of Iowa Speedway tickets. This is for the June 18th and 19th Truck Series and Xfinity Series races at Iowa Speedway. Pretty simple question. It's going to be kind of in line with a lot of stuff that's going on. Martin Truex Jr. got his 4th career Sprint Cup Series win last weekend at Coca-Cola, at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So my question to you is, where was his 3rd career Sprint Cup Series win?
I know.
You cannot win because you're going to be there anyways. 402-573-0590. Those are the numbers to call in order to get in and answer the question. Let Craig know, where did Martin Truex Jr. get his 3rd Sprint Cup Series win? It happened to be his, if I say last one, technically his last one was a Coca-Cola 600, so forget about that one. It's the one before that. Where did he get his 3rd Sprint Cup Series career win? Should we give him a little bit of hint?
Well, what are we going to give him?
The hint-wise, you mean?
No, what are we going to give them? What's the prize?
They get 2 tickets to the Truck Series race at Iowa Speedway on June 18th and 2 tickets to the Xfinity Series race at Iowa Speedway on June 19th. So that's a Saturday-Sunday show.
That's a pretty good prize for such a simple question, but we'll give him a hint anyway. I got a great hint.
Okay.
It's not Iowa Speedway.
There you go. That's your hint for you. We want to make sure and say a big, big thank you to Stan Cisar for joining us in turns 2 and 3. Make sure you tune in next weekend. We have more tickets to give away to Iowa Speedway. We're going to talk with Dakota Hendricks to preview I-80 Speedway's World of Outlaw race on June 22nd. We're going to probably end up doing an interview with an Iowa Speedway winner, maybe Chris Buescher or somebody who's been there. Chris wouldn't, because Chris won there, but Ryan Blaney won last time, but I don't think he's running Xfinity again this year, isn't he?
I doubt it. He's running
maybe
for
not.
Rookie of the Year.
He's running full-time Cup, so maybe not. We'll get you an Iowa Speedway. You know what? Maybe we talk to Brendan Gaughan again.
No.
We might as well talk to Brendan. But
we haven't talked to him this year. He's probably wondering if we're still alive.
We'll see if we can't get somebody on the show to talk to you. Get ready for that race coming up. So a lot of great stuff. Don't forget Pocono today. Green flag action at noon. That means the coverage on Fox and MRN kicks off at 11. If you're a part of the Pick'ems contest, make sure your picks are in on time. We'll do it all again next weekend. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been The Front Stretch.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for The Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
After 50 years of being America's home track, Eagle Raceway is the place to be on Saturday nights for great dirt track racing. Bring the family out this Saturday for Junior Kids Club presented by Colby Ridge. During intermission, kids 12 and under can compete in the Kids Money Grab on the front stretch of Eagle Raceway. Tickets for kids 6 to 12 are just $5 and kids 5 and under get in free. Gates open at 5:30 with the green flag waving at 6:30. Eagle Raceway, just east of Lincoln on Highway 34 in Eagle, Nebraska.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.